Hello, I'm Dr. Carol Talbot, the creator and founder of the Possibility Hub, taking you beyond the boundaries of who you believe yourself to be and opening to new possibilities. This podcast is an advocate for awakening, encouragement, and creating opportunities for an expansion of awareness and consciousness to allow you to step into a fuller focus of who you really are. In this episode, I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Neja Zupan, a natural healing specialist and pioneer in holistic health and personal empowerment. Now, I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Neja when I was a guest on her Beyond Traditional Healthcare Summit, and we quickly discovered our shared passion for wellness and innovative approaches to health. Based in Slovenia, Dr. Neja seamlessly integrates science, psychology, spirituality, and Eastern practices, offering a transformative and refreshing blueprint for well-being. With her extensive qualifications, certifications, and experience across a variety of wellness fields, she transcends traditional health narratives, bringing profound insights to the table. So join me as we delve into her expertise and uncover how to recognize the subtle symptoms that can indicate liver, lung, or kidney issues. Hello, Dr. Neja. Welcome to the Possibility Hub. And I'm excited to see the different directions this conversation may go, because just looking at your profile, we could actually spend the whole conversation with me just listing all your qualifications, all the courses you've attended. So having spoken to you before, I know that you're a bit like me, a lifelong learner, absolutely love learning, and your interests have gone in many different fields. We have a lot in common that way. And I know our focus of today's conversation is more around wellness, and wellness, not just physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness, a really holistic view. But looking back at some of your qualifications, back to your education, I see that you have a bachelor's in electrical engineering, a master's in economy, a PhD in organizational science. So I was wondering, when did that switch come to move more into wellness?
This was a very interesting question. And first of all, thank you for inviting me, for having me here in this podcast. I'm very excited about speaking about all topics, because I also know that we matched very good in a frequency, in energy, in our knowledge. You asked me when this switch happened. Actually, I switched already as I was a child, and it was a cause of certain circumstances that I studied electro engineering. As a child, I wanted to be a doctor, medical doctor. But because at the age of 5 and 6, I was labeled, diagnosed as a child with special needs, I was somehow prevented to study in medical science, because psychologists suggested not to go studying this field because it's too heavy. I can say in her words, too heavy for me, that I will not succeed. And at that time, I was not so much aware of my capabilities, and my parents were very simple people, and they didn't have capability to support my wishes. So I went to study something that after 4 years I will have some job, some occupation. But already at the age of 14, I started to meditate, to read books in the area of spirituality. So I was actually never separated. I remember myself at the age of about 6 months, I was lying in the crib and observing angels surrounding me. So they wanted me to laugh, to have a good time. This was my somehow first memory of encountering in this life, like visually encountering spiritual beings around me. So I was never so much separated with everything. What we call spirituality, our spiritual world, our multidimensional existence. And why I selected to study electroengineering, because this was the closest possible to my wish for studying medical science, because electrical engineering is everything about electrical currents that also happen in our bodies.
Totally.
Yeah,
We are electromagnetic beings. So, and it's all energy. So understanding energy and frequency, absolutely, you're on target.
yeah, and understanding how to perceive this invisible current, and this current was recognized by science. I got in touch also in electrical currents in our bodies, so not very much far away. But then I saw that when I started to study at the university, I really felt this huge, like already emergency to study something more. So besides studying at the university electrical engineering, I started to study yoga, craniosacral therapy, natural, no, energy medicine, homeopathic medicine, phytotherapy, so many other fields, the modalities from natural healing. And
which is strange, actually, when your initial focus had been medicine and a doctor and more the allopathic. So when you did go into more wellness and medicine, it was all natural medicine.
yeah, it was because, I was somehow prevented. Now I see this as a benefit that I that that this psychologist said that I shall not go studying this, because now I was very much open to different aspects of healing, not just this scientific recognized approach to health, but also many other aspects, much broader aspects of what health is.
And
So
isn't that
I'm
strange? Because it seems like it was more of a gift that they prevented you from studying medicine, where you would have been mass programmed, mass conditioned, and placed in a boundary, so to speak. And that actually what seemed like people blocking your path was actually the gift that steered you into a much more expansive field. And that's the beauty of when you can a little bit later step back and see the bigger picture of how things fit into place.
It's so beautifully put together. Yes, I see it really as a gift. So I never saw this person, this psychologist, that she was somehow a burden for me and she prevented me this and this, but she was actually sent from God, that I started to study something else.
Yes, totally. No, I get you, and I think that's the one of the gifts of being a little bit older. It's like the jigsaw puzzle pieces begin to fit. Now, one of the reasons I started with that question, how come things sort of fit together like that? And was there a switch to wellness? Now we can see that, that was always in the background. Was because I know back in 2013 or 2014, over 10 years ago, you had your own health challenge, and you actually at that time rejected allopathic medicine and decided to go your own route. So I wondered if that was a catalyst, or whether now that we've heard, whether it was like, well, okay, I've learned all these different modalities. Now it's an opportunity to practice what I preach with myself. Was that the
Yeah,
case?
yeah, this one last was the case. I already studied for 25 years, and how I perceived the cancer diagnosis as test, God's given test for me. Now you have learned for so long. That's the same, in the university or in school. We learn for such extent of period, and then we have test what you have learned. And I did it with the top grade.
Yeah, and I know that you had quite a challenging prognosis. It wasn't good. So, and by the way, I'm sure, like me, you wouldn't advocate that your approach may not be for everyone. And I often, when I get people reach out to me when they've had a challenging prognosis, I always share with them a multi-level, multi-pronged approach. And then I know often when people do have health challenges, they get so much information, so much advice, it can be overwhelming. And of course, we've been programmed, conditioned, taught, and told to, go by what allopathic medicine teaches us and tells us to follow. So I always encourage people to find their own way and be discerning and feel into what fits right for them. Because as you know, with all the different modalities that you have, one size really doesn't fit all. And as I shared when we started this conversation, wellness isn't just what you do with your body. It's what's happening with your mind. It's the spiritual aspect, the multidimensional aspect. It's the emotions. It's all those fields. And this is the beauty when, people like you and me have many different modalities that we can use to assist people, not only in making the right decision for them, but also to find a way that opens them up, that resonates with them. Would you agree?
Yes, I completely agree. This path is not for everyone, although it's meant for everyone, or everybody, but people need to discover what fits them.
Totally. So look, we talked about having a focus for this particular conversation, and by the way, I think there's going to be many, many, many more conversations. I know we can talk for hours, but we wanted to take a focus on recognizing certain symptoms because, like you, we could speak about breath work, we could speak about and neuro-linguistic programming, mentally adjusting your focus. We could talk about Cambo. There's many different modalities. But first, you probably see a lot of people who come with gut issues, liver issues, lung issues, kidney issues, thyroid is another one. So I know in this conversation, we thought we'd take some of those, like the liver, the lungs, the kidneys, and help people start recognizing certain symptoms. And like you, we're not in the business of just treating symptoms. We're looking for root causes. But when you recognize the symptoms can often give you clues to the root causes, as somebody's emotional state can give you clues, as the way people use their language often gives you clues to what's going on inside. So let's talk about the liver, because many people sort of dull their senses and are not attuned to having that awareness that something's off. So, a lot of the breath work and body work that we both do is bringing people back into, so you can feel what's off, when things are right, when things are wrong. and be a little bit more discerning. So let's start with the liver and talk about some of the symptoms that could highlight that there are issues with the liver. And this can be in the energy fields and not yet manifest in the physical. So what are people looking out for that should be a little red flag for liver?
First, I would just like to stress that Ayurveda, for example, has 6 stages of an illness. And our allopathic medicine diagnoses an illness on the stage 5. But with observing what you just invited me to discuss, we can discover already from 1 to 4 what is going on. I have a list of 15 most common not symptoms, but you can observe by yourself what is going on in the body. And if something out of these 15 symptoms goes wrong, then it's already a start for searching what is going on in our bodies, not just in body, in physical body, but also in our emotions, our mind, and our energies, because everything, as you said, starts in energies. And in regard to liver, we need to ask ourselves, am I angry too often? Am I envy, jealous? From time to time, people have difficulties with bowel movements. This was, for example, my case. I couldn't poo. I couldn't have bowel movements. And this was not connected with large intestine, as somebody would think about this, but it was with the liver, because my liver had a hard time to digest all fat. When I ate fat, everything became congested. So if you cannot digest fat, then it's already a sign that your liver is something in energy is going wrong. And if you are swollen, or your mind get like blurry or a cloudy mind, then it's also might be connected with liver, because a liver is the only organ that provides nourishment for our brain. And if liver doesn't function well, then our brain doesn't function well. And also, if you have in your family, if, for example, runs this, I think it's called varicosis. So when blood is clogged and your veins, how?
We call it varicose veins.
Yeah, exactly.
Often on the backs of the legs. Yes.
Yeah, usually in legs. Yeah, this is also connected with you don't need to have this, but it's already the toxins in your DNA that might cause it, with certain outer circumstances, that this illness starts to progress. So you observe also your parents, your relatives, what illnesses run in your family, and this also be like a sign where you need to work on.
That is so interesting. And again, I'm just thinking, of course, I know people with varicose veins, and we know people who've had operations for their varicose veins. And what you're saying is, yes, you can treat the varicose veins. However, that's a symptom. It's not a cause. And so it's your liver, kind of waving and saying, yoo-hoo, I need some help. So, I feel this is so useful for people to understand what's going on. And rather than looking at your body as separate systems, as seeing it as, one field, like a whole community. And if you've got, something wrong in one of the communities or cells, it impacts the others. So rather than just dealing with that cell, you have to, address the whole community or find out where it's coming from. And so maybe people listening can say, oh, yes, varicose veins, or instead of thinking of having the varicose veins treated, think about maybe it's time to do some detox and cleanse the liver. And when we had a conversation the other day, we were talking about, so many people are doing detox cleanses, parasite cleanses, but it's also preparing the body for a cleanse, because if your elimination organs are not functioning correctly, you can cleanse your heart out. But if the toxins can't get out of your system, then you're just clogging up the system even more. And the liver is one of the main organs in terms of cleansing the whole system. And I liked what you said about that it's also involved in if it's clogged up, then it can really impact for brain fog. And if you think about as people get older, they often say, "Oh, cloudy, foggy mind," and it's not. It's just as you get older, maybe your liver is so clogged up, you actually need to keep cleansing it on a regular basis, which is the reason that I do these. And I also love the way that all this fits into the buzzwords of today, which are longevity, anti-aging. A lot of the symptoms, are not a result of aging. They're a result of a clogged up system, and that you do need to detox regularly.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's the liver. We also had the lungs on the list. And again, when I see a lot of people having challenges breathing. I went on a long hike the other day, and luckily, even though it was uphill most of the way, for me, it was lovely just being out in fresh air. But a lot of people would find that very challenging, and they'd be wheezing or with breath. Often there's a lot of mucus involved. So many people are not able to breathe effortlessly and easily and fully and deeply. So, what are some of the symptoms, as I said before, energetically, not just physically, that highlight that there could be an issue with lungs?
Usually when people have difficulty with lungs energy, they are or frightened, or they want to make a huge space around them, so they don't let people get close, or they are perceived like cold, or they are perceived like very warm person, very easy approaching person, because they leave other people too close, and then they don't have enough space for them to breathe. So this is very, very usual. Or they are very much occupied with certain thoughts. I had one entrepreneur. He was entrepreneur and a very good businessman. But in the time of the crisis, he lost his company. And after 20 years, he is still over there. And he has difficulties with breathing, asthma, clogged lungs, even blood levels, blood analysis is not good, not analysis, but blood, I don't know this word. For example, ferritin, hemoglobin, these values are not good, because he cannot breathe. He's clogged also in outside with thoughts, with these heavy energies. And he said to me, okay, I will die with this. But I always,
He mentions death because if you think about lungs, you think of the breath of life. And if you have difficulty breathing, then that's also an issue with living, and
exactly. Yeah.
yes. And when you think about also how we communicate, you actually can only speak on an out breath. So, if you can't express yourself, if you haven't taken enough in breath to express your breath out, and it's funny in terms of space, we all know those people who get, really close to you and you end up doing a back bend to sort of get more space. But again, I always think of that as energy, that people who are not aware that they're kind of like invading your space. But it's also interesting that when somebody is in your space, they are in your energy field. And that means they are staying, they leave parts of themselves within your energy field and you're collecting all of that. Whereas the other thing you said, they either let people close or there's, too much space around them. It's like it's almost empty space and there's no energy around them because we do need to interact with other people. So this is very interesting to think about difficulties in our organs in different ways. Very interesting. What else
Yes.
can you tell us about the lungs?
Lungs, because they are connected with breathing, they are very much connected with our nervous system.
Yes.
If when you are in shock and you keep this trauma in your body, so you don't release this trauma out of your body, you don't perceive it anymore because it's got into subconscious, but it's influencing you through breathing. So shallow breathing, or really this apnea, I don't know how it is pronounced, when person
It,
stops
yes,
breathing.
I was just going to say, this is one of the reasons that we both teach holotropic breath work or run breathwork sessions, or in yoga, there's pranayama. And in a holotropic breathwork session, you'll see people often have an emotional release because that has been held in. And funnily enough, as you were speaking, I'm reminded that when I run breakthrough experiences could be fire walking, could be board breaks, could be arrow breaks. But when you watch another person go through an experience like that, the natural tendency is to go and hold the
Yeah,
breath. And
yeah,
so I always teach people, particularly when I'm doing this as a sort of motivational group experience in corporate or anything, I teach the whole group to support everyone going through by, cheering, can do, or something like that. And it's not just the cheering and what they're saying to support the other person, it's to make sure they're breathing. Because if they're not breathing, every time they watch people do a arrow break or a board break or walk across those coals, they're like, and then that trauma is held in the muscle, it's held in the organ, it's held in the cells. And again, how do you release it? You release it. Breath work is beautiful for those releases in letting the body really fully oxygenate itself. And yeah, you often see people have an emotional release. Totally get that.
yes, yes. Usually, we don't have a track. We don't remember anymore when this trauma was caused or happened. But through breathing, through energy of lungs, we can perceive that something is wrong. If a person, you mentioned in the beginning that you observe people when you walk that they have a shallow breath, this is trauma behind.
Yes.
So it's perfect sign. The person doesn't need to have any diagnosis, but it's a perfect sign that something is behind.
It's, in a lot of the work that we both studied, whether it's from an NLP perspective or linguistics or more psychology, it's really paying attention because people give you clues all the time for what's going on with them physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. They give you clues through their physiology, through their breath, through the words that they choose to use, through their emotional state, through their eye patterns. If you learn to observe and listen, you're getting clues all the time of what's really going on with people. Before you do, and I know you have a lot of bioresonance devices, so they're great for giving you a sort of quick reading. Except, before people have even come in to see you, you've got a good idea of what's going on in other ways as well. So look,
Yeah, I usually use bioresonance device to check because it's everything visible on the screen because
yes,
of the people that they can see. For
yes,
me, as you said, I when a person steps in, I have what they say, how there is their body position, how they look like. All are already the signs. So for me, I don't even need this.
I agree with you, and it's more your clients that need the convincer. And
Yeah.
that's where the bioresonance devices, some of them are fantastic on giving very quick readings, but they give people a visual snapshot for what's going on. Now, let's do one more, which would be the kidneys. And again, very, very important organ. What are some symptoms we need to think about that show that our kidneys need a little bit of help and support?
With kidney is the same as for lungs, is also fear, anxiety, shock, insecurity, loneliness. But this is very deep, um, deep fear. It's not so much visible, so much connected with the visible things that I fear. For example, differentiation with lungs. People fear to meet somebody. People fear to go in certain area. People fear to drive. This is like connected with certain thing. In the opposite way, kidney is connected more with fear of deep existence, fear of dying, fear of living, something that is fear of being loved and loving. Because to love, you need to really expose, and not just expose, but be really hugely open to whatever comes. That's why people who have this fear of being alone, insecurity, this is everything what is connected with this uh, uh, first encounter, first contact with life. We are born, kidney is connected with emotions, and also with water. And when we are born from water. And water, if we experience some issues when we are in womb or first 2 years, this is everything what is traumatic is connected with the kidney.
Isn't that
And
interesting that you go back to the birth with the kidneys and the way that we're born? Because I always say one of the issues that most people have is abandonment. Because when a baby is born, particularly in the Western world, the umbilical cord is cut too soon while there's still blood in it, which creates such a rapid shock of a disconnect from its mother, from source. So many of us have this kind of like we want to be loved, but then there's a fear of being loved and loving, which means that a relationship tends to be conditional rather than unconditional love. And I'd also say on a lot of these, particularly on the emotional level, many people don't sort of recognize some of these issues that they may have. And that's the reason that, the likes of you and me get clues. And I say this just based on one of my own experiences once, where on a bioresonance device, they said, "Oh, should we check your adrenals, stress levels and things?" And I said, "No, no, no, I'm fine. I go out walking, I meditate, da, 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 da." And it's funny, they didn't test it. But when I got back, I thought, I should have had it tested. And I did go back and have it tested, and it was high because I'd learnt to manage it through meditation, through walking, so that you don't even recognize some of these symptoms yourself, because most of us have learnt to manage those emotions or mask them or suppress them, or we wear a mask. And then we're never being our authentic true selves, and we're not giving ourselves permission to be our true selves. And so when it does manifest in physical, it's not happened overnight. It's something that's come a long, long, long time. In fact, one of the energy healers that I've met recently, with one person, I said, "Oh, are you working with her?" And she said, "It's too late. It's already in the physical form." So she's able to highlight, way before it gets into physical form. And, sadly, as you know, many people do not do anything about their situation until it's too late. If people have got a back issue, they'll just take a painkiller, and yet their back is still suffering. Or people think when they've got a bad back, "Oh, I picked up something heavy yesterday. That's what's caused my bad back." It's not. Your body has been dealing with misalignment maybe for years and years and years, and then one day it puts up its hand and says, "I can't handle this anymore."
I
So
have enough.
yeah, so you think you're back suddenly out, but actually it's been, going on for a long, long time. I'm a great fan of, going regularly to have, spinal adjustments and things like that. And it's the same, I know you do cranial sacral, when the energy is out of alignment, it's incredible what else is picked up on an emotional level or a trauma level that knocks the body out and has done for years. So, this is so important to start thinking of wellness and health on a multi-level rather than just the physical.
Exactly. I cannot more than agree with everything what you have said. Our orthodox allopathic medicine is focused only on body, but body is the last instance where the energy disbalance manifests. So we get many, many signs. For example, I remember one of my clients, he's the same age as me, and he was tired all the time, and he didn't do anything for this tiredness. He drank a lot of coffee, and then after 5 years, he came to me with tumor in his brain, and then I gave him certain orientations what to do, and he said, it seemed to me that at our age, I'm not so young anymore, but he said, at our age, this is normal. The person is without energy and has pains and cannot think straight, and this is normal. And then he added, but while looking you, this theory is completely demolished.
Yes, and I totally, when you see people who are old at, what my age or something, I just think it doesn't have to be that way. You can still do this, 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 and enjoy life in a magnificent way. So I'm just going to recap some of the things that we covered, because we covered such a lot of ground in terms of the liver, from an emotional level, thinking about, if there's anger, jealousy, think about digesting fats or blurred mind or any swelling, varicose veins as well. Look out for that as a symptom on the liver. On the lungs, it was fear, either people invading your space or the opposite, and how that also impacts the nervous system. And the kidneys was also fear, anxiety, and you said fear of deep existence, like not just fear, it was a fear of living, as well as a fear of dying, and that in also brought in love and loving. And I'm just going to say here, we want to go through many other organs. One of the other areas, because I see so many people with thyroid issues. And when we were speaking the other day, when I said thyroid, he said, "Oh, Carol, that's going to be hours." There's so much to discuss there because, people have an overactive, they have an underactive thyroid. And I know from the medical perspective, when it's thyroid, they're often given medication for life, that's it. That's it. Whereas I know from your perspective and mine, we don't believe that that's the case. So there's some real gems in this conversation, and I'm sure people will want to reach out for you and connect deeper with you. How did they get in contact with you, Dr. Neja?
Can be on email or social media. My email is TIM at it's Slovenian name, Bisernica means pearl.
I think, shall I write it in when I publish this?
Yeah, it's
I'm going to write
better,
everybody, or I'm going to have it put on the screen so that you can contact her. And also, I highly recommend that you go to Dr. Neja's website. There's replays of an amazing summit that Dr. Neja hosted recently called Beyond Traditional Medicine, Beyond Traditional Health. And there's some amazing insights and interviews there that you can get access to. So I highly recommend that you go to her website, see all the different areas that she's involved in, and maybe think about what we've shared in this conversation on liver, lungs, kidneys, and some of those symptoms that may sort of be a little red flag for you to start thinking about your emotions, your mental well-being, and think about health in a more holistic way. So once again, Dr. Neja, thank you so much for such an insightful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again for inviting me, and for listeners, thank you very much for listening.
And let's do another conversation too. Let's get the thyroid and the gut as well. Take care. Thank you.
Looking forward.
Me too. Thank you for tuning into this episode with my guest, Dr. Neja Zupan. And I highly recommend you go to her website, byseneca.si, where you'll also find some free resources to download. I'm always thrilled to be sharing possibilities with you, and if you want more, then check out the link at thepossibilityhub.com. And if you do feel that others can benefit from listening in, then please go ahead, share, review, like, or follow me on Instagram, Carol K. Talbot, or check my YouTube channel. Remember, you're always more than you think you are.